What's happening, y'all? This is Sunday Swing Trade Setup. Just like every Sunday, man, I'm gonna go into not just like every Sunday. So usually I go over my favorite swing trade setup plays. This week I don't have a swing trade setup play for y'all. So what I'm gonna do instead, um, I think the market is still gonna continue in a downward direction. Um, But what I'm gonna do instead, I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of education, talk to y'all a little bit, and instead of, maybe we could probably find some swing trade plays, but I'm gonna give y'all the temperature of the market, how you identify whether we're in a recession or not, and also, man, I rolled by, as y'all can see, I just got cleaned up yesterday. And on my way to the barber, I drove by the Tesla dealership and I seen a whole bunch of people out with signs and whatever. I was like, they hating on Elon for something. So we gonna talk about that too, man. I actually went into my barber and we turned on the TV and seen that it was worldwide, like across the world, people are boycotting Tesla. So when you see news like that, sometimes you want to be able to use that news to make you some money in the next day or the next week. So we're gonna go over that so I can show y'all how to make some money for the next week. So I'm gonna start it off right, just like how we always do. I'm gonna go to the fear and greed index to see how the market is feeling, how people are feeling about the market, right? And people are fearful. We've been fearful for a minute now. Usually, you want to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. This is one of them situations where I don't recommend being greedy when others are fearful, because I feel like people are fearful for a reason, right? So we got the market being greedy. Okay, cool. So let's pull out the news. Let's see what the news is talking about. And we're going to go over how do you identify a recession, right? So if we go on the news, let's see how the news are. Trump threatens Russia oil penalties. Bad. Anti-American sentiment rise in Europe as Trump fuels anger. Bad. Continuous copper boom sparks mining crisis in Peru. Bad. Okay, so the news is bad. Putin gets a soft power win from China. Okay, so the news is bad. Okay, let's take that in consideration. So the market is fearful and the news is bad. All right. So how do you identify? Well, before I get into how you identify the a recession, I'm gonna go into the economical calendar to see what the week is gonna look like for us, so that way we know really how to trade based off of, you know what I'm saying, news, when not to trade, and all of that. So based on the calendar, let's see what we got coming up this week. Look like Monday is a good day. Nothing crazy on Monday. Nothing crazy on Tuesday. Wednesday, we got non-farm. Wednesday, we got non-farm. So we don't have important information until Wednesday. Wednesday around 8:15, you're going to see a big market. Something's going to happen in the market, whether it's going to jump up or down. I would not be in a swing trade, you know what I'm saying, Tuesday going into Wednesday. If you in a swing trade Monday, get out Tuesday before the market closes. So Wednesday we got important information. Let's see what they talking about. All right, so the non-farm, it estimates the change in number of employed people during the previous month. And that's, of course, important because people being employed, that means there's more money being spent, more money circulating, right? So last month was a big drop. Last month was real bad. So this month we want to see if there's been in some improvement, but there's a lot less people working um in the last report last month on March 5th. A whole lot less. Um we went down from 183,000 to 77,000. That is not good. So so that's real important. Wednesday morning, we got real important news. Um, and then Friday. So Wednesday before the market open and Friday before the market open, we got important news. All right. So let me see what the VIX is looking like, the volatility index, before I start talking about whether we're in a market crash or not. So let me share y'all with the VIX. And remember, the VIX is inverse from the stock. When the VIX is going down, the market is going up, and vice versa. As y'all can see, the VIX probably all last week was going down, which means the market, well, not all last week, the earlier part of last week. And then towards the end, the VIX started going up. So towards the end of the week, the market started going down, and towards the beginning of the week, the market was going up, as I predicted. So and I missed a step. Usually I go over the swing trade plays that I went over last week. So after I go over the VIX, I'm gonna do that with y'all real quick before I get into next week, how to trade it, how to swing it, and all of that. But we got the VIX going up. So according to the VIX, we can be looking for next week for the stock market to go down. So how do you identify? So I'm gonna get into how do you identify a recession? Are we in a recession? Then I'm gonna go over last week plays, and then I'm gonna let you know how to trade for your up and coming week, right? We're gonna talk about Tesla a little bit too. So stock market crash is 2 negative quarters of GDP, right? So let's see what they're talking about. Let's see if we had 2 negative quarters of GDP. So according to Google, no, last quarter we saw economical growth, right? So it's 2 consecutive quarters of GDP is what's considered a recession. We haven't had one yet, but the market is trending downwards. Plus, with Trump's tariffs and inflation, I got a strong feeling that our next report, which is going to be on April 30th, our next GDP report on April 30th, in my opinion, will be the first negative GDP. I don't know about the second, but the first report, I'm pretty sure on April 30th, we're going to have negative GDP. So that's the first thing you want to look for about a recession. But around that same time, we got earnings. So earnings and the GDP report, that's all going to tie into whether a recession is coming or not, right? But we got earnings from April to May. Of course, because you only have like 4 to 6 companies or something like that, 4 to 10 companies reporting earnings a day. So it goes, from a month to 2 month period. So companies that companies that work worldwide and deal with certain sectors, you really want to look at those companies and see, are they beating earnings, to kind of give you a idea of the world, of the global situation. So you want to look at banks, you want to look at real estate. One company I really like is to give me an idea of what direction the economy is going into is Caterpillar. Caterpillar's earnings are on April 24th, right? So we got the next GDP report on the 30th, Caterpillar's earnings on the 24th. Right around that time, you'll get an idea of whether the stock market is starting to go into a recession. If we're starting, the trend is down, so the market is already feeling like we're in a downward trend. You know what I'm saying? It's already giving us that vibe that the stock market could be going down. And we're gonna look at the charts a little bit later, so you could, get an idea from the charts too. But as you can see, I build the case. I look at the news, I look at the chart, I look at the financials. I even go on Twitter and look at Trump to see his tweets and all of that. But we got Caterpillar's earnings on the 24th of April, and we got the next GDP report April 30th. Those are two indicators that could let us know whether we're heading into a recession or not, right? So that's two consecutive quarters of negative GDP. I feel like this quarter is probably the first one. But another thing you want to look at, you want to look at the 2-year US Treasury and the 10-year US Treasury, right? So let's see what the 2-year US Treasury is. The 2-year US Treasury yield is 3.9, right? And when we talk about US Treasury, these are bonds, right? So if you buy the 2-year US Treasury, you can get a yield of 3.9% on your money, right? These are safe havens. So safe havens, they usually respond opposite or different to the market, right? So the 2-year US Treasury is 3.92, right? I'm gonna put y'all on game on how else you can also identify a stock market crash, right? So what did I say? What the 2-year years? The 2-year was 3.92 was the 2-year, right? So the 2-year was 3.92, and the 10-year is 4.24. One good way to know if we're in a recession is if the 2-year Treasury note is higher than the 10-year, right? Usually, when the 2-year US Treasury note is higher than the 10-year US Treasury, we are in a recession or heading to a recession. That's a key indicator. And right now, the 10-year US Treasury note is still higher than the 2-year. So, are we currently in a recession? No, it is not documented. It's not a guaranteed recession. It's not labeled as a recession currently, but we could be in the beginning of a recession. So before I get into everything, let me go over the plays that I talked about last week. I know I gave y'all a couple of them. Let's run through them. And I know some of them hit too. I know some of them hit. So let me share with y'all some of these plays from last week. Let's see what I called. All right, we got Lowe's. Was Lowe's the first one I was talking about? First, Head and Shoulders, right? So okay, so we can pull this chart pattern up for y'all so y'all can see the inverse Head and Shoulders. So if you look all the way to the right, you got an extended drop. It goes. All right, what's the next one? We got Lowe's. That moving average, of course. Choice One Finance, we got a hammer candle at the bottom of a downtrend. Choice One Finance. And y'all remember with swing trades, about the cross. So
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola honestly might be my second least favorite. So y'all could get an image of that.
Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin
And
was a
like I said, the
put
bearish
option.
engulfing now it's not the most ideal bearish engulfing because bearish
Lockheed Martin, I was talking about a put option or maybe put swing.
paying five
And
days
then
of
Apple.
price, but it's also above the 9-day moving average, right? So we got the bullish engulfing ending.
All right, so we got Lockheed Martin. We got Lockheed Martin for a